Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. And as usual here, I would like to take the time because I know the person that presented to us, our guests, showed up with some very expensive commodities. The first is their time. Sharon, I want to thank you for that time. That is something that is precious. There's no price to it. The other is your story. You are here to entrust us with your journey, and that is also a precious commodity. And I want to thank you so much from the depths of my heart that you are here to share both of them, so that we can learn from you and we can become better human spirits while we're occupying this space called Earth. Thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you so much for letting me share my story on your show.
I'm excited about this. Sharon, I tell people that we are creators. I want you to tell them all the stuff that you have created, because this woman that I'm talking to, guys, she got some stuff. So I'm going to let her talk about it, and then we're going to go and figure out from our conversation, how did she create this person that is about to tell you all of these good things?
Well, hi, I'm Shannon Grissom, and yeah, I'm definitely a creator. I'm an artist, an author, producer. I really like to let things out. And, there was a time when I didn't. And I didn't do so well back then. I'm definitely a creator. I definitely like to create and share love.
I'm excited about this conversation because I often use art as a form by which I teach. And for me, I use it as a representation of life. So I'm excited to talk to an artist about that. Sharon, here at Threads of Enlightenment, we like to go back to that space that we call home, that family unit, and talk about our family, our upbringing, because that's usually our formative years. And we look at life through the lens that we gain from a series of things there in our family. Tell us a little about your family and how was your upbringing?
I have two sisters, one twin sister. So I have a twin. Wow. and a younger sister, and it was an incredibly creative household. My mom was a music major, gifted, brilliant musician. And, my dad, although he didn't study music, he loved all genres and exposed us to all different sorts of music. So music was very prevalent in our house growing up. And anything that we wanted to do creative was encouraged. I mean, just nice. They let me, I can't tell you how many times I redecorated my room. And, so the whole upbringing was when I look back at it, I feel so grateful and so blessed for the encouragement that we got as children and growing up in our lives. It wasn't necessarily thought of something to do as a living going forward, but your expression was really important. And my dad is incredibly creative. He's 88 now and still doing new things, and mom was as well. So I feel incredibly blessed.
So how did you, having that beautiful picture that you just laid out to us, how did all of that freedom begin to form the individual that we're looking at, Shannon? How did that freedom that you gain in the family, the freedom to express oneself, how did that form you as an individual?
Well, I think that it gave me an incredibly strong foundation. So even though I blocked my own freedom in later life, as I entered the workforce, as I accepted limiting beliefs that I couldn't do creative things for a living. So basically I went into college, thought I needed to study business, dropped out when I was a senior, partied too much. And during that time, I just let all my creativity go. It pretty much vanished. I made a living, but I didn't make a life.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing music, wasn't doing any art. I was about 32 and I was drinking way too much. So when I was about 32, I took this painting class and it was like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do. I need to find a way to work my way down the ladder and shift. And so I made it a priority, and I would get up at 3:00 in the morning every day, because after my jobs were always so stressful that after work, I did not feel like creating. I didn't have anything left in me. And for an introvert, when you're in a fast-paced job, it's pretty brutal. So I get up at 3 in the morning and I would paint before work, because in the morning before work, it was pure. There was no influence. Nothing had happened yet. It was just me, spirit, and whatever I was creating. So I did that for 5 years and was able to work my way down the ladder until I was able to finally quit my day job and do art as a full-time job. So I think I credit creativity. First of all, I had that great foundation. Then I strayed big time.
Yeah. Why? We're going to get back to that. Go ahead, tell your story, because I want to know, why did you stray and what was those circumstances that
I was doing what I thought I should do rather than following my heart. And that's what always, over years, I'm in my 60s now. Over years, anytime that things haven't worked out, it's because I was not listening to my heart. And so,
isn't that the case?
And now create any of my creative work is a priority. First thing every day.
That's awesome. I think programming, that I always talk, and my listeners know I talk about, is programming. And if you don't believe that we are programmed, you need to take a look at the budget of some of these companies, corporate companies, and advertising and stuff like that. They pay over $1 million for a Super Bowl commercial, a 30-second spot. And that is all about programming. So they contribute, and they constantly are trying to put us in this belief system, Shannon, where you go to school, you get out of high school, you jump into college, you grab something, and you're not sure what you want to do. Inside of you, like yourself, those that are artists and those that are more on the art side, program begins to start, well, you can't make money on that. You can't make a living. And so all of those fearful thoughts began to deposit in you. And next thing you know, you're in corporate America, working a job, miserable as everything. And it seems as if that was the road that you were taking. And because of all of those angst, as they said, that uneasiness, that division within yourself, caused you to start drinking and to it's just basically to cope. We do that just to cope, Shannon. I'm telling you, we just do that just because it's a part of how we are trained. Come home, get a drink, and sit down, and it's we get a little tipsy, and then we start it all over tomorrow. So talk to us about here. You're going through this because you said you couldn't make a living by it, as I mentioned. How did that enter in as far as your life? Where did you pick that belief system up? Was it as a teenager that drove you into college, or where did you pick that up?
I think it was when I was entering college, and I wouldn't say it was just any one person, but the whole thread of what you should do is something practical, Shannon. You're not being practical by doing your art. And actually, the creativity is practical. Yeah. I just didn't see it that way. I just thought that I had to follow a certain path. So I don't know that I really can't put that on anybody else. That's the conclusion I drew from what was all around me. But I don't know that it wasn't like I had somebody pointing their finger at me saying, you can't do that. I put myself in that prison.
Usually the case in many of our lives. And there's all that outside noise, but usually we are the harshest critic within to ourselves, and we start to put those limitations within us. But you had a chance, you walked into talk to me about that, because that's really interesting. That how did you end up at an art class? Because I know in my time it was a space where we went to drink, girl. we had wine tasting and all kinds of stuff, and then we all end up painting, and it come out with some crazy stuff because we didn't understand. We were doing it. We were there for different reasons.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Did you purposely say that, or how did that happen?
Oh, I saw, let's see. And this is so many years ago, almost 30 years ago. I somehow saw this. It was an adult ed art class in a shopping center. And I thought, oh, that would be fun to try. Just, so it wasn't like a college class or anything official. It was just a little class in a shopping center. And I thought, that would be good. So I go there, and
why would it be good? Why would it be good?
It just sounded like fun.
Okay.
That's yeah. And I'm all about having some fun. So I thought, what, that sounds like fun. I think when I'm about to create something, you get that spark of woohoo, let's go do this. And that's what I felt. I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but, so I felt, let's go do that. So I did. And I remember thinking, I painted this little apple, and it wasn't even very good, but I just knew, the experience for me, anything creative, music, writing, painting, it's all a way for me to tap into the divine, to tap into myself, to really go deep. And so it didn't matter at first. So I have to qualify this. At first, it didn't matter what I created. It was just the fact of tuning in. I have to say that I can't say that over the years. What happened was then I started, oh my God, I've got to do this well. So you had that little factor coming in and trying to be perfect. And now I'm back to it really is the journey and not the destination. But it was a long road getting there. I started off with just appreciating the moment. Then I got in trying to be perfect, and then I got over that. Because you know what? If it doesn't work out, I just throw it out.
Yeah.
Or paint over it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine is Shannon. Mine is music, because I'm a musician. So I remember when I first picked up the instrument, I fell in love. I picked up a bass guitar to replace a friend of mine because he was leaving college and they needed a bass player. And I would be practicing. As soon as I get out of school, I'd be practicing for hours late at night. I would close my eyes, and the music would just take me. And sometimes I would go to a place and I'd ask them, what key are you playing? And they'd tell me. And I would start playing, and I'd close my eyes, and I would see the notes coming, and my eyes are closed, and I'm in this totally different space that all I can say is ecstasy, pure ecstasy. That you feel this energy that is just charging you up and causing you to be in a space. To me, it's a spiritual space, and I tell people, we all participate in voyeurism, and so that's what we do. When you paint and you're in that zone, it becomes a spiritual meditation and expression. So talk to us as you got into the school and this class, you got awakened. You had your awaken that took place. Now, how did that, when you sat in your corporate space, I love that you started your morning that way. How did you walk through the day as you did that? Because to me, it looks like it would be a form of meditation. How did you manage your day once you start practicing that lifestyle?
Well, first thing in the morning, I would, and I wouldn't look at the computer. I don't look at my phone. I just get up and I do morning pages, first of all, which are Julia Cameron's morning pages, where you write 3 pages longhand, and it's like a system dump. So that gets the meditation kind of going. And then I create after that. Now, when I get to work, there's something that happens on the drive to work where you're shifting into that new space. So I think part of it is that I was unaware of how I was walking through life until I started creating. And that brought this huge awareness. So as I'm shifting to work, I didn't realize this at first, but on a conscious level, but as you shift, with every mile that you get closer, you get pulled into that environment.
Yeah.
And so once I started realizing that I was shifting on the drive from this creative bliss to, oh my goodness, a stressful place, I would realize that, okay, see how you can bring that into your day.
Yeah.
I wasn't always successful. I knew that that's what I wanted to do while I was there, but I'd get uptight just like anybody else, or, I'd maybe not, yeah. And the other thing is that I tried not to, this was the big struggle, tried not to resent being there, tried to appreciate, I had to really consciously do this, appreciate the gift of a regular paycheck, appreciate the gift of the people that were there, appreciate the experiences, the things that I gained that would help me later, the business sense that would help me later in my creative work when that became a business. So I was constantly turning the dial, tuning in and shifting back to a positive thing, because it was not my natural state of being. So I had to, and it wasn't always happy. So I had to constantly, shift to something positive. When I'd realized you're uncomfortable, you need to think something happy. You need to go to a better place, and don't, and it wasn't that I was outwardly grumpy, but something would happen and I'd think a bad word in my head. and then I'm like, okay, if you're irritated, you need to take a look at yourself and release that part of me that's irritated with whatever's going on, and send it love, but it was this, it was a constant struggle. I can't say that it was easy, but the thing about creativity and the thing about my practice in the morning was that before that, I never tried to search for the positive. I never tried to search for a better thing. So people talk about progress, not perfection. I was happy that I was conscious and aware of it.
I think that's one of the keys. Yeah, it's perfectly makes sense. I think it's one of the keys of personal development is, first of all, the awareness of the emotion that you're experiencing. And it is amazing how you began to take ownership, and you were walking those principles on a daily basis, taking ownership and saying, wait a minute, okay, how can I manage this? You were switching the perspective on that stuff. And I tell people that's a main piece, maintaining that perspective, as far as if you, just live where the pain is, if you will, you're going to become affected in the sense you could walk into depression, you could walk into resentment, you can walk into all of these negative energy. But you did not do that. You arrested yourself, brought yourself present, and began to utilize the tools at your knowledge that you had, and come through it. And it takes time to do that. I was a pretty proficient person in expressing with some wonderful language, and I had to learn how to control that. And I learned it in my meditation, because I'd be one of the, my words would be coming out before I can even think I was one of those. And so I had to learn how to manage that, and meditation helped me. And I could see an artist where you're drawing into that energy is a form of meditation, and I could see that assisting you as you move through the day. So how long did it take you, Shannon, to bring it up as far as the finances, I guess, to the point where you can walk away from your job? How long did that
It took 5 years to do that, of getting up at 3, and I was finally, I think the last year I worked part-time, and then I finally took the leap and did it. And so that was, in 1999. So that was a long time ago. And throughout this time, about 4 years ago, I had to go back and get a day job. And that was very humbling. So because I had made it all those years, but it just wasn't happening, and I needed to do something different. So the interesting thing about that experience was that And it was hard to find a job later at my age. And also because they had seen that I was an artist, there were a lot of people that could not translate the skills I had in project management, all that into a traditional day job. So that was difficult. But anyway, I finally find this job. And after all I've done, I was a receptionist, and that was what I got. And those people were wonderful to me. In my head, I knew that I needed to be there. In my heart, I was resisting. I was resentful. I didn't want to be there. So I really got the opportunity to work through these issues again.
Yeah.
And, but only this time I'd have to say, I was very conscious of it. Whereas in when I was younger, I was pretty oblivious. But this time I knew better. And I knew better than to be grumpy. I knew better than to be resentful. I knew better. And it still took me a while to shift and get my head and my heart aligned. And I'm just so grateful for, first of all, the owner of the company, Kathy, who could see my value and give me a shot. And they were awesome. They could see that I had more skills. And so they gave me wonderful projects to work on that were creative. I got to the website, so it was, I think, shifting my own attitude and just really appreciating where I was helped that whole energy of them giving me more creative, wonderful things to do. And so I was there for, I had a day job for 5 years. And then I was able to, once again, go back to my art as a full-time business. So it's not been an easy road, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It was.
I think that's the beauty of it, though, is the fact that it isn't an easy road. I think I would be bored if it was.
Yeah.
I would be living my life if it was, and that I wouldn't have taken this journey. It is a constant refining of the self. Like you said, you had to go back and re-educate yourself about maintaining that perspective. And after you did that, you were able to transition. And so life is, I think it comes to make us more aware of how powerful and how more deep we are. We are this reservoir of deepness that we won't know until we're pushed. And I think as we're pushed a little more, and then we expand, and when you get to there, and I think what it is, it's the enemy of growth is comfort, where we become comfortable in the sense where you just sit there and become fat. And I don't want to do that. I was there before. I want stuff to happen, because every time something comes, I'm like, okay, I have an opportunity to grow. I want to find out what it is. And so I look at things differently. So talk to us here, because you going through all of this, you got this lesson, and you went back into class, you graduated, and after 5 years, is it you said, or 3 years?
It was 5 years. I had 4 years as a receptionist, and then I for a year was a gallery manager. So I was heading back toward the art.
Back towards your love.
And so I did that for a year. And then I realized, you know what? I need to take the leap again. I need to just do this. And so I did.
So talk to me about, because I've been watching you on your YouTube channel as well. I'm learning, and I want you to talk to us about the creative process. And I mentioned to you earlier that I tell people I utilize the canvas as life and how we relate to each other. And I tell people we are all artists. My journey is I am painting and creating. Yours, Shannon, you are painting and creating. You're also doing that as your gift. But I believe our life as individuals, we're painting. It's a painting. We are given this canvas. And because I use blue differently, why would you criticize me standing there as another artist? Why would you look into my painting? And because I'm doing it this way, you're arguing with me, telling me, no, I should do it this way. And I'm like, the conversation should be, wow, that's an interesting choice and usage of your blue or your green. What's your process? And as we have this conversation, Shannon, I believe it gives us a a ground where we're common and we're able to grow together. Talk to me about your creative process, because that is, I was watching you do some of your TV thing, and I was like, oh my God, that's beautiful. You look like you were having so much fun. So talk to me about that.
Well, I talked about it a little bit earlier. I do start with morning pages, and so I write three pages longhand. So interestingly enough, tuning in and meditation, I didn't used to do this. Let me just tell you what my typical day is like. I get up in the morning, I do these morning pages, and that's just 3 pages longhand, system dump, whatever's in your head. And once I'm through with that, and it starts off maybe a little sniveling, but then you get gold from the universe after a while. And so I extract whatever I needed to hear from those morning pages, and then I shred them. I let them go. And then I spend anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes tuning into my guides and seeing what they have to tell me. So that's how I start my day. And then after that, I paint. One of the things I do, and you were talking about music, there are parts of music that, well, music's just amazing, but I actually use G sharp, the tone G sharp, to clear my chakras. I just sing that note, and then I just feel everything going through that doesn't need to be there leaving. And then I go to the canvas and I just take a look at it to the easel. And I'm like, okay, at this point, I'm working on a series of channeled work, and I just ask, okay, who wants to come out today? Where before I used to try to do I have some little control issues, right? So I would have, I used to get a reference photo, and I would try to paint, I would take a picture and try to paint things exactly like the picture. And now I have 2 different bodies of work. I have these guides that are coming out. You can see this one in the background where they're just wild. And I just let out whoever wants to show up that day. And then I have the sock monkeys, and that's something fun. But my process is I really pay attention to who wants to emerge. And there's also a thing where I use my body as a pendulum. So if I'm normally I'll look at the paintings in progress and go, okay, this one really wants me to go work with it today. But there are some times where I'm not sure. So I'll just stand up and I ask myself a question, and my body will lean in the direction, forward for yes and backwards for no. It's just a fun thing to try. And so, you ask yourself a question, and your body just moves in that direction. So I'll ask, okay, I'm obviously not listening. What do you want to tell me? And I'll lean in that direction. So the metaphysical aspect is a huge part of my creative process, and they go hand in hand. It's just a different state of being. So then I just start painting, and then things happen. And sometimes I get in the middle of painting. Sometimes I get song lyrics. Sometimes I don't usually listen to music because I have so much music in my head when I'm painting. Especially first thing in the morning. That would be auditory distress. Later in the day, there are times when I'll actually put on a certain playlist to influence the work. But, so that happens too. But typically I've got songs either I've made up or I wake up with a song every morning, and that influences the work. So whatever, and I pay attention to whatever that song is. I feel like it's a message that I'm supposed to. Does that happen
that
to
awareness? You? Yeah, that awareness. I love it. That in music, yes, it happened. I'm an artist as well. I would be driving. I'll tell you a story. I'm driving in Manhattan. Actually, I was on the train, and I'm sitting there listening to the train, the tracks, and music just started to go. And I remember coming in the next day, and I brought a tape, and I put it down, and I got all the noise of that whole scene, the track, the noise from the background. And then I took that and put music to it, and put a bass line to it and all that kind of stuff. And I just had that one just sitting there and kind of drifting off. And the music that was within that noise was absolutely beautiful as I'm sitting there going, wow. And as I saw this vision of stuff. And so at the time I had to go back and get the the tape so that I could play it. I'm dating myself, Shannon.
I guess it's on a tape.
So I'm in my 60s too, so I'm dating myself. So I wanted you to tell that story because I want to then take you back a little, because you mentioned something before where you struggled with your freedom that you expressed a couple minutes ago. And when you had that dogma coming in and dictating how you would draw, and you were searching for perfection within that. And I wanted you to give me that as a baseline so we can go back and talk about, introduce us about that time when you were searching for perfection, and how did it feel? How did you feel as an individual inside of your being as you did that?
Well, so when I'm learning to paint, I was always struggling to make the painting look just like the picture, to make it look like something. So that was when I was learning to paint, that was my goal. And then as you progress as an artist, the way you get into different things, you are judged to get into a show. You are judged by your work for competitions. You are judged. Yeah. So, and then of course I was my harshest critic. So and so how did that make me feel? Never good enough. In fact, I wrote a song about that. I never felt good enough. And I mean, there were some that, and you know what, when you first start painting, and even later, there's kind of this curve where you'll do one that's pretty darn good, and then the next few just didn't quite work out. And you know what? That just happens. I don't know if you golf, but if you ever go up and take a swing, sometimes you're going to hit that drive straight and it just looks great. You're going to hit it long and far. And other times you duff it, right? It goes in. And so painting's like that too. It's not always a straight shot. You never know what you're going to hit and I think if I do know where I'm going to go every time, then I'm not open enough. I'm not creative enough. I'm not taking any chances. So somewhere along, and this took many years. For years and years and years, I tried to be a serious painter. And then I realized I'm a goofball. What am I trying to do? I'm silly. Why am I trying to be a serious painter? Yes, I want to improve my craft. Yes, I want to learn as much as I can, but I also need to let spirit take over and paint. And I have to say that it's only been, I would do that periodically and once in a while, but I'd have to say it's only been the last couple of years where I just really offered it up. And now I'm doing more channeled work than I am traditional work. And I decided to stop entering. I enter competitions periodically, maybe twice a year, but I don't paint for anybody else. I paint what comes to me, and it's either going to work or it's not. And my judgment on whether it was a success is based on the process. And I realize that, you know what? Not everybody's going to like what I'm creating at this point. It's not traditional work, but I do. And that's really what's important. I love what I'm doing right now. And so I stopped going to, and this was huge for me. I stopped going to places where what I created wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
And before I was trying to fit into established ways of being. And I realized again, it comes down to heart. And is it making me happy? Is it joyful? Well, then the people that it will resonate with are the people and the places that I need to be with, not what I was forcing, not what I was trying to do. So, but I have to say that was not an overnight thing. And I have lost some audience along the way with what I'm creating now, and with my openness about my whole metaphysical journey. But again, I'm not losing the authentic people or the authentic relationships.
I think that's important. You have to, as a musician, one of the things that always broke my heart, as musicians grow and their music grow with them, and people get critical because they're not pigeonholed, they're moving as they're growing.
Yes.
and they're creating different music, different things, and they get resentful of that change. And I'm like, I find that sad. It breaks my heart because you're not allowing that person to grow and experience the newness of this. And that's where they're at. And they're sending this new creation to you because that's where they're at. And you see that in musicians and also in someone like yourself. I want you to talk to us about how did all of this stuff now ended up into a book, your painting, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to have. I mean, you have. I think it's a venue. People would say to me is like my alter ego, the monkey oracle, where you create this entity outside of you and do all these things. Talk to me. How did that come about? Because that is a shifting, a seismic shift in the sense it is the same in creativity, but it's different. So talk to us how that came about.
Well, I think what's funny is what appears to be a seismic shift has actually been gradual tremors over 20 years. I started painting these 𝐷𝐿𝐒 when my mom, not too long after my mom passed. She passed in 94. And it was, the first one started as a tribute to her, a tribute painting. And then I just kept going because they were happy and they made me feel good. And when I started painting them, I've loved oracle decks for years. And I always had an oracle deck in mind for them. So each one was created with a state of being in mind. So I did the paintings, and this is over 20 years. I've done, about 50 sock monkey paintings. So then during the pandemic, during 2020, I had 2 one-woman shows closed. I had the first one, the first one was this huge show and get everything hung, send all the notices out, and boom, all the galleries are closed. My work is locked in there and no one can see it. Now, at this point in my life, I'm very aware of spiritually things that happen in the physical world. What does that mean? Yeah. I don't just take things at face value. So that closes and I'm thinking, okay, well, then I had things start to open up. I had another one-woman show and that one closed. And I said, okay, they're trying to tell me something. So I thought, okay, what project have I always had in mind that doesn't involve galleries or what I've been doing traditionally? What can I do during this shutdown that I've always talked about, but never worked on? And then I thought, okay, it is time. You can't be out there. So it's time to go within and let this book emerge. So I worked on the graphic design. See, I always, when I start a painting, there are traditional ways of working it. You can start from left to right, back to front, but I always start with a thing that I feel I can do, and then I sneak up on what scares me. Mm-hmm. So and that's kind of how I treat life, right? So with the Sock Monkey Oracle, I thought, okay, I had the paintings, then I did the graphic design, and then I thought, oh my goodness, who am I to write this book? Mm-hmm. Who am I? And I heard in my mind's ear, when I said that out loud, I heard that in my mind's ear, you are not writing it. Just get it down. So, for a month, instead of my painting time, I just sat down and said, okay, what do you want to say? And it came out. It was just channeled in about a month. And, of course there was editing involved, but it was basically it just was like a system dump. And then I really, so I got that done. It just was a huge accomplishment for me to just get it done. And then I researched a lot of different publishers. And when I saw Beyond Words, they felt right in my heart. And when you look at there are logical, I hit things on 2 levels. I do the whole logical, what makes sense. But before I take action now, I do a heart check. And Beyond Words was so, it was like, so I sent it to them and it was really, it's just been an amazing experience. These people, I don't care who I work with from no matter what department, they are just, from editing to promotion to the owners, they are just happy, joyful, supportive people. So I know I have the right publisher. And so I feel like my 𝐷𝐷𝐿 is it's just a huggable, my goal for this whole thing is to make people feel good, help them, like they're getting a hug, they're getting guidance and a hug all at once. And so to have a publisher that's that happy and joyful as well, the whole thing has just been wonderful. It's just been an amazing experience.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Because I was curious, how did you make that jump? And then after all of that, I mean, you gain much notoriety and so forth. How did you, that's what I want to talk about. I'm like, this woman is all over the place. How did you switch in, Shannon, into now you did that and then, hey, let me do production on, let me take this there. How did that come about after you have this other piece moving and the experience that you got was just a wonderful experience. And then you moved into production and TV and stuff like that. How did that do?
So the TV was actually, I started that, 2003. So that actually had the TV show was, and I did that Give Your Wall Some Soul.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I always wanted my paintings to have the soul come out. And so it was interesting. When I started, I didn't even get the significance of the title totally. But anyway, so I did that. And then over the years, I've done YouTube series, so that this was a traditional TV show and that was all over the place. And then after that, I did shorts that I could produce on my own during the pandemic in my own studio. And so, and now I think I'll be doing a little series I'm getting some really good information from my guides when I tune in every morning. And I thought, I can't, I heard in my head, someone needs to hear this. And so I'm, like what we were talking about earlier about getting out of your comfort zone. And what I heard was, and one of the messages that what I thought was safe was not. And what I thought was scary was actually going to be safe and contribute to my growth. So there are things that, information that I get that I think would help people, or maybe it's just what they need to hear. So I might, I'm gestating this series of little 2-minute or 1-minute videos for that. So the video production, it's funny, when I did Give Your Wall Some Soul, the TV show, I shot that live. No editing, just whatever happened. And at the time I was doing so many things, I didn't think I'd have time for editing. And so I just wanted it to be done. Now I actually enjoy the editing. It's part of the creative process. So it's interesting how things evolve. So the TV's always been part of it. I guess all of the different things I do are, well, it's kind of like a piano, right? I mean, you're hitting
it
things.
It is who you are. Isn't it wonderful? Though? It is who you are.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing, because I have 3 podcasts and everyone is telling me, isn't that too much? And I'm like, no, each one of them is aspects of myself.
Right.
And they may look into that situation and see me doing that and perceive that I'm burning out or something like that. And I'm having the best time in my life.
Yes.
And as I'm doing it, I am growing more as an individual. So I don't understand, what they're saying, but I understand what they're saying, if you know what I mean.
I totally get that. I was just thinking that there are people that have actually told me they look at what I'm doing and I make them tired. And just thinking about it. And I thought, well, don't think about that. Just enjoy one aspect of it. Just because it makes them tired to think about what I'm doing, it doesn't make me tired. It energizes me. It enlightens me. It feeds me on so many levels. And it sounds like that's what's happening to you.
Same thing, same exact thing. And I think what it is the disturbance within people comes when they try to walk our journey. You have to walk yours. Allow me to walk mine, and don't be critical about mine, because mine is going to look different than yours, but some of the principles by which I am operating and you will be similar, but the situation is different. And I think the pandemic, Shannon, I believe the pandemic came because people like yourself and myself, because we were pregnant. And if we were hooked into all the other things, and we would have missed and we would have aborted that pregnancy. And I believe it came to slow us down so that we can see that belly, if you will, growing and growing within us and going, wait a minute, I need to deliver this because it's been there for a while. And I believe that businesses were given birth, books, music, all kinds of stuff that was given birth as this visitation came to us. And I think it was a opportunity in my mind for the human race to reset what is important to your personal development, what is important to your family. And I think we lost a lot of people, and that is painful, but also a lot of, I think a lot of pregnancies and abortions would have taken place had that not come in, like the things that you have given birth and you're currently impregnated with something else that is germinating with you. And that is your journey. And I believe it's part of your growth. So when someone look into it and say, wow, you're doing too much, you should do this, and like, no, if I don't do that, I feel incomplete. So I always tell people, don't focus on my journey, focus on yours. You'll miss yours and your day of visitation, as they say. So yeah, I get it, man. You know. So how did because I believe where it's taking us, all of these things is, as I mentioned on the onset, we become servants. We serve through the art and all of these things. There's one part of the creative piece that I didn't mention. I wanted you to talk about it, but I could see that you were trained in it. Talk to us about the business part of your art, because there is a business to the art. And so that is a key piece. And some artists are not, they don't know how to manage that part. How do you manage that part?
Well, the interesting thing is, at first, I really worked at it, early on, because I didn't want to go back to a day job. So I thought, okay, I got to make this work. That was my initial motivation. But I actually found, and so I have to back up a little bit. I'm not even going to say 1/4. I would say 1/8 of my day is spent on creative work. The rest is spent on the business side. And I don't have a problem with that, because I make the business part creative. And that is what it needs to be in order for it to, and there are times when that'll shift. When I was working on the 𝐊𝐘 Oracle, I did a minimum of social media. I did a minimum of what I needed to do. So you kind of ebb and flow with what's going on. But I do spend a lot of time on the business side, and I am blessed that I am whole brained. I definitely have a left and right brain that work together. That being said, I get very distracted easily. The whole shiny, so what I have done is built in, I know my personality. I know that, I see this, I want to go do that. Or, rabbit holes when you're on the computer with, you see this pop up. And so what I've done is I've created the equivalent of blinders, like horses have blinders. And so in order to keep myself focused, which is a challenge, there are only certain times I answer the phone. I turn off my email if I'm working on a project. I actually set things aside so that I'm only seeing what I'm focused on, because otherwise, you just I get down so many rabbit holes. So that helps me keep focused and productive. I did take a lot of, when I first started painting, I took as many seminars, workshops on the business side of art that I could do. And I would say now I'm doing the same thing with the book side, because that's a whole new arena and I'm not familiar with it. So now I'm studying that. So there's always, there's a creative side to the business, and the study part keeps my mind engaged. And that's something I enjoy as well. So I don't snivel and say, oh, I've got to spend this time on my art. The way I see it is if the business side of your art is your day job, you got nothing to snivel about, right? I mean, really, just do it. And so, I think it's fun. It's never been the one thing that was a challenge for me was that early on was marketing and sales. And so I actually created mantras and meditations that said, I enjoy marketing, I enjoy sales, and, that kind of thing. And you know what? Now I do. Where, so I identify where I need some work, and I systematically approach those areas. And not everything gets cured, but it improves. So.
Yes. And that's what we are. I think that's what our journey is about, improving the self. I tell people that enlightenment to me means that you and I are becoming better students of ourselves. I don't think it's this, like a yogi sitting on a tree and floating in the air and all that stuff. I think as we become better students of ourselves, I believe that is enlightened, because then from that space, I react different to people. When I got that insight about how special I was and how unique, one of a kind that I am, I would tell people I'm an endangered species. So if I believe that truly, then you are an endangered species. And so how I react to you and speak to you, is very important with that knowledge that I have. And so that is what when I say to people, as we become better students of ourselves, we interact different with people. I learned how to forgive me. I was the harshest critic towards myself. I had to learn how to forgive. I had to learn how to love. I had to learn all these principles. And then I'm now able to utilize it to gain and have a stronger relationship with people as a result of it. So yeah, it is hard. It's difficult. It's fun. And I love it all. I wouldn't change it for a moment. I wouldn't, at all. And all you guys that have been listening to us in our conversation, this is a person that has been through much, and you got to see her face. The smile is incredible. And that, infectious laugh. I've been, bathing within that laugh in the last couple of days. Even today, I got a chance to listen to some of the things because I just love that energy comes out of her when she laughs. I want you to get in her space, purchase her books, get the art, everything. We're going to provide all of that so you can contact her. I want you to contact, Shannon and just jump into her space. And I'm sure she's big enough to hold you and support you while you're there and guide you with all the insights that you need to help you to become a better human spirit while you're here. Shannon, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me on your wonderful show.
Thank you.